what we're doing. And if you hear this lyrics, these are, I think you may, I thought I heard you say it, this is Al Green featuring Anthony Hamilton, Lay It Down, Let It Go. I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, but she went on a Al Green binge, and you pulled up every Al Green song that you could find. And periodically on YouTube, I would get up there, and then you played this song, and when I heard it, I was sold. I think it was because it was time for me to lay some stuff down and let some things go. And so I was just sold on that. And so once I listened to it, I said, this is my song too. You got to lay it down and let it go. Do you remember that season?
Yeah, that was the season when, the court season.
Is that what it was?
It was that season, and
Lord, have mercy.
I needed, it's so funny, I told a friend of mine, I said, I need a reverend, a minister, somebody. I just needed somebody. And so I tried to turn on some of the bedside Baptist folks.
Right, go ahead, keep going.
And it wasn't working for me.
Said it wasn't working?
So I prayed and I said, God, I'm feeling something. I can't get myself out of this. Well, I could, but I just needed to be ministered to. And the right Reverend Al Green helped me get through that season.
He most certainly did. And
his story, to his song,
yeah,
to his, I watched everything.
Yeah, remember the documentary we saw where he was talking about his incident where he had the grits and stuff poured on him. And he said, he said, it's almost like it was a dream because I can't believe that it happened, and I couldn't believe that woman had done that. And he's had to get himself together, and then that's when he kept hearing God say, start the church. And he said, start the church. He wouldn't do it. And then finally, he said he had put it off so many times, and finally he went to his partner that was working and said, hey, look, man, take this $11,000 check, go put this down on that building. We have to do this. He said because he couldn't get any rest because God would not deal with him. And go ahead.
And I was going to say, and the strangest thing, but this is just how the Lord works, and that is that what I got mostly from watching Al Green was seeing someone who had a call and then did some secular, I'm not going to say secular music, I'm not going to call it that, who had a call and then went in that direction of music, and then of just, music for everybody. Still was love songs, it was music for everybody.
Right.
And then because I watched everything, I could see when he was saying, I can't fight this anymore.
Right.
So before you know it, I'm looking at Soul Train, and he practically started doing this little church dance.
Yeah, he got happy.
I mean, on more than one occasion. Then I could see that he was singing songs to God, but women thought he was singing to them.
Right.
But he couldn't. And when I saw that fight, I knew that whatever I was in, I had to come out of it, because I was in that space, but I felt that.
Wow.
I felt I can't stop. And so to watch him do that, and then the other thing that blessed me so much about Al Green and Dick Gregory, there's probably other people out there, but these are the two that I remember during that time. And that was that both of them had money and walked away from it.
They sure did.
Both of them were successful in the world, so to speak, and they chose their call.
Right.
And so while I thought that my biggest problem during that time, Deron, was that you could really do nothing for me, and I felt like I was just having to go through the motions, I believe that the Father was giving me
I could
what
really
I
do
needed.
nothing for you.
Meaning during that time, you
Okay,
just couldn't help me.
I got you. Okay.
You couldn't do it. You tried, you couldn't. And but I do know that God was preparing me. That's how I feel about it today.
Right.
He was preparing me for the person I was going to be when I got out of that trial.
Right.
As far as I get it today, while I was in the trial, I'd already had the tools to make it through that trial.
Right.
I had that prior to the trial.
Right.
But it was so devastating and so big and so devastating, I didn't understand that. But and hopefully this will help somebody. But even while I was in that situation, thinking that what I needed right then was because of what I was in, no, I was being prepared.
Amen. And I want to take the why for this evening service and welcome soldiers, welcome Church of the Lord's Disciples, welcome Soul Factory, welcome Kids Eat Free, welcome Samaritan's Choice, welcome Zach, welcome Deborah, welcome staff, welcome elders, welcome ministers, welcome all of you all who are listening, welcome all of you sisters, welcome all of you brothers, welcome all of the men, welcome all of the youth, welcome, because what we're attempting to do, not attempting, but we're going to do, Jill, is we've had this conversation where I said, I need to find the vein of where we are, and I had to change the message from what I was doing. And even in these broadcasts to say, the whole goal of the broadcast is to assist you and assist myself as well, us as well, to be able to go to a higher level. And the goal will be to do that. Talk to me.
And, I want you all to get this, that everything you're getting right now is for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's for your future.
Right.
And right now, I know, the prayers that are going up, God, get me out of the situation, or Father, don't let me drown in this situation. Don't let me become overtaken by depression and anxiety and all those things that can happen during this time. But you were already prepared for this. This is not get ready. This is be ready. You already be ready.
Right.
You be ready for this.
Right.
So what's happening right now, two things are happening. You're going through, you're connecting with the Father. You're getting back to your authentic self at the same time. But this information will absolutely, what you're going through right now, you're going to see that this is going to be so that for tomorrow.
Right. And I've had to really find my way. And we've had to find our way in these moments because we are still a church, you all. We're 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. Who's ever watching, this is the church. And we have to stay on the front line. And I said, God, what do we share where we will be in the same place where everybody is and we can help everybody? And when I say, because listen, I went back to look at my notes, and you look really good. I went back to look at my notes. You can't do your eyes like that and look at me. I went back to look at my notes, and when I looked at it, I said, yes, this is what we need to do. We need to talk about laying it down and let it go, because you were in a tremendous space too during that season, and I couldn't do anything. I tried. I was as cordial as I could be, but the truth of the matter is, I needed to lay some stuff down.
Yeah, and I had to sweat it out. That was me. It was my time to be in the trial. It was my time to believe that God was my highest authority. It was my time to not throw in the towel into a certain relationship with God.
Right.
It was my time for that.
So now let's go ahead and get started. But we didn't pray, did we? No, we didn't. Father, I thank you for this day, and I thank you for this moment. God, I thank you for the team members. I thank you for the ministers. I thank you for those who are joining us, friends, family. I thank you for guests. God, I thank you that we have the ability to still connect. I thank you for your revelation, and I pray, Lord, that tonight we will say something at this moment that will help somebody transcend their anxiety, transcend their fear, transcend whatever they're going through, so that they can be in a much lighter place, and they can have a much happier pathway where they are right now. Father, let Jill and I touch where people need to be touched, and better yet, God, you touch them. Just lead us and let us flow. We thank you in advance. Those in agreement with the anointing, with the Christ, with Yeshua, say amen. Amen. I'm going to start this off reading you a story. The river and the lion. After the great rains, the lion faced with crossing the river that had encircled him. As the river encircled him, he saw swimming was not in his nature. Because lions don't like to get in the water unless they absolutely have to. And it wasn't in his nature, but he knew it was either cross or die. He understood, I either cross over to where I need to be, or I'm going to die, because this water is going to rise up and something's going to happen. And so he finally got it within himself to say, you know what? He roared and he charged the river. He turned his energy on and charged the river. And as he charged the river, almost drowning before he retreated, he thought that he could use all of his strength and all of that and force his way through, because that he was used to being aggressive. He was used to being powerful. He was used to being the king of the jungle. But now here he was having to retreat because he could not swim across that river. And so, almost drowning, he treated, and many more times he attacked it again. He would attack the water, and he would go at the water, and he would attack it. And then each time he failed to cross, he was upset. He was exhausted, because he said, I should be able to do this right now. I should be able to make it through this right now. And each time he failed, he got exhausted, and the lion lay down. He had to lay down. And when he laid down in his quietness, he heard the river say. Now hear this out. By this time, he's exhausted. He has stressed himself out. He's got his own fears. Here he is, the lion, but he's got his own fears that he wants to cross this thing. And he finally got quiet, and he heard the river say, never fight what isn't here. The river spoke to him and said, never fight what isn't here. And so, cautiously, the lion looked up and asked, what isn't here? Your enemy isn't here, answered the river. He said, your enemy is not here. He said, you're using all this strength. He said, but your enemy is not here. Your enemy isn't here, answered the river. And just as you are a lion, I am merely a river. And when he said, I am merely a river, now the lion sat very still, and he studied the ways of the river. And when he studied the ways of the river, after a while, he walked to where a certain current brushed against the shore. And stepping in, he floated to the other side. And so when he did that, he figured out a way to be, as we will deal with it, to pay attention to what he took for granted and begin to say, I need to get across. There's some things you need to get over. There's some rivers they need to get across, Jill. And in order to get across this season, it can seem very daunting. And it is for all of us in one way or another. He had to float to the other side. And I'm telling you, float on. You need to float all the way on to where you need to go. And let us add some value to your life. And so within the human heart, let me ask you, would you like to say something about that story at all?
No, the only thing I thought about the story, just this statement that you've been saying over time, and that when you deal with something that's real but not true, that story reminds me of real, not true. And when something is real but not true, meaning his fears was real, but what wasn't true was that the river was his enemy.
Right.
And I've seen times when folks have, and I've try to help folks, or at least share with them about how you. Judge Toller would say it this way in her book. You have to show the proper passion for things. You know, you just everything can't be an emergency.
Right.
And get the same response that the smaller things get, the same response as some really scary, dangerous things will get.
Right.
And that's what I got. Real, but not true. And that helps you.
And can I? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No problem. Finish.
When you say real, not true, sometimes the feeling that you're having is real. It is real, but it's not true for this moment right now. It's not true for this season. And if you're not careful, you'll say, if you're not careful, and that's how I acknowledge the emotion.
Right, that's it.
It's real.
That's it.
But Deron, it's not true for this moment. So you don't have to respond like that is true for this moment. But you can acknowledge, oh, I'm having a real feeling right here. So now, within the human heart, we all feel the call to be simple. And I'm not talking about simple, Jill, simple-minded, but to go back to basics, to dial down all the complications within your repertoire, the complications in your thought process, in your conversation, in your actions. We all hear an inner call to say, slow it down sometimes. Like I have to not multitask and just do one thing at a time and do that well. And that means simplify my life, organize my life. And yet throughout the day, the world urges us to be at war with ourselves. And so here we are, we have a desire to be simple, and when I say simple, we're just trying to get along and get on with our lives. Don't want to fight with nobody, don't want to argue with nobody, just want us all to get along. And the world instead the world urges us to be at war with ourselves and each other. The world is constantly prompting you. This energy, and again, I want you all to understand, just like you can look at some people and say, I don't like his vibe, I don't like her vibe. Well, the world will try to urge you and be at war with yourself and each other. And the world tells you to be resentful about the past. It tells you to be anxious about your future. The world tells you to be hungry for what you don't see. The world will prompt you to be dissatisfied with what you do see. The world will, so you see the different sides, you can be satisfied with what you do see. The world energy of the cosmic thing will tell you to be guilty, be important, be bored, be right. The world is constantly putting you in a vice grip and causing you to want to react and not respond to it.
And the world is constantly telling you what you should be, while the spirit is constantly trying to tell you who you are.
Right.
So the world wins and puts us at war because the world will put you in comparison.
Right.
The Father knows that there's only one you, so you'll never get that from the Spirit.
Right.
You'll never get the Spirit to make you believe and try to make you believe that you can be like someone else. Why is that? Because God set you with a thumbprint that is different from every. Listen, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that nobody has the same print? I mean, that's amazing to me.
That's it. That is.
That's amazing to me. Every person born, everybody that's going to be born, you know what I mean? No recycling. No recycling. So let me explain to you. The creator that created you like that would never say to you, be just like them. Compare yourself to someone.
Okay, I get
well,
what you're
never.
saying.
Because that wouldn't be true.
Right.
You can never be anyone else. And just in case you were going to forget that, you got your own personal ID code.
There you go.
So the world is telling you who you should be because it's working your mind. But the Father and what we're hoping to be able to get you to is who you are. And try to get you back to that lost self of yours that has wandered away from your path for whatever reasons, and to get you back to the place where you know that you are really uniquely you. You really are.
And when the times get tight for me and got tight for me, or hectic or chaotic in my mind and my spirit, I have to make the choice to understand it's time to be. But the challenge, Jill, was I would try to be like the men I studied. I would try to be like the women I studied. I would try to be like people I saw go through this. No, you've got to become that on your own. And we're going to help you to understand, how do I become this person of peace? Speaking of this person of peace, peace is when a mind that learns to let go gradually returns to its inherent, when you can return to your wholeness, your completeness, your happiness, and your simplicity. I'm going to say it again. These words that I'm sharing are words that I had to learn for myself. And that is, my brain is malleable. My mind, I can change the thoughts. As a man thinketh, Proverbs 23:7. As a man thinketh, so he is in his heart. As a woman thinketh, so she is in her heart. As a church thinketh, so they are in their hearts. And so as you think, a mind, you have to understand, a peace is when a mind learns to gradually let go, and then it returns back to its state. And when it does that, it returns to its wholeness, Jill, its happiness, and its simplicity.
That's the whole mission of God, restoration.
Okay,
that
restoration.
You will be restored back to its state. This is people say, oh, I believe that Jesus died for me. No. Believe what he did, and believe that the door he opened, not just the death.
Right.
But what you now have access to.
Right.
He says now, as a result of that, we all have the opportunity to become sons of God.
Right. Right.
We can all become something. We have the right. That's what he said. We can exercise the right. We always had the right, but we lost that right, or we didn't know we had that right.
Right.
So we had to be reintroduced to the fact that, listen, you have a right, which means you have a choice not to stay like this. You have a choice not to stay like whoever did it, when they did it, why they did it. You're not permanently fixed by what someone else did.
Right.
Not in your spirit, maybe in your flesh, but not in your spirit.
Not at all. And the day that we begin to understand that, Jill, is the day that we do get an opportunity to experience restoration. I just want to play that for 1 second. Do you mind me playing that?
Do whatever you want to do.
Okay, cool. Let's go.
Y'all mind him playing it?
All right, let's go. Shut up. Stop. Okay, good. Restoration has finally come. I'll get it down. But let me say something. When you said that, Jill, it triggered me because that's what this is about. Restoration. And that you may not think that you needed to be restored until you get into this tight spot.
Listen.
Go ahead.
Listen, people. Listen to me. Listen. The only way you're going to know how to discern what is right for you, because you can't do that the way people do it. People decide what's right and wrong because of the way they feel. So somebody thinks if I'm in pain, it's not good.
Right.
God. If it's bad, it must be the devil.
Right.
If it's good, it must be God. That means you have left the door open for the devil to offer you all kinds of temptations.
Right.
That you think that Eve was offered something awful? No, it looked good. She said, that looks good. Look like it tastes good. Let me have some. This is what you have to understand. So why do you need to be restored? Back to your path. Back to God. So that when something comes in your path, this is how Jesus did it. When Peter came into his path, after he shared the vision with Peter. Prior to that, Peter didn't say to Jesus, don't do this and don't do that. And no. But once Peter heard and Jesus shared the vision, and that vision was, I'm going to die. I'm going to be crucified. Folks are going to do all this to me. And once he shared that, and then Peter said, no, not you. He knew you.
Get behind me,
he
man.
He said, get behind me. He said, how did he know? He said, you are an obstacle to my path. If I don't know my path, I don't know what's an obstacle to my path.
There you go. That's it.
And that's why you need to know your path and be restored back to that place where, from that lost position to that right to become the sons of God.
That's good stuff. Let's help them for the churning minds, the minds that are churning in conflict, the minds that are constantly going around in conflict, the mind that cannot be at peace with itself. So I'm going to believe, God, that you will be able to sleep tonight. When it's time for you to go to sleep, you will be able to take what you have heard, and by faith, you will be able to apply what we're talking about in your own personal life and not allow worry to take over. And so now, sometimes our mind is churning. I'll give you an example. You're going to go somewhere, and then somebody calls you and say, hey, you want to go? We're getting ready to go to such and such. We're getting ready to go to such and such place. Now, y'all, you're friends. And this is your friend who's calling you. But when she or he says, we get ready to go here, the first question you ask, well, who else is going? And then you say, well, who's going? And because you already know, if she going to bring so-and-so, I'm not going to be there. If he going to bring his cousin or such and such, I'm not going to be there. Your mind is already churning. Listen, then you get to a point where you say, I don't want them here. You can get to the location, you can get to the destination, and in your mind you're saying, I don't even want them, I don't like them here. We can think other people would rather, I can think of many other people that I would have rather had showed up on this trip, or I rather would have gone to the restaurant or to the movies, wherever it is that we said we were going to go. And when we do that, the mind is churning. And so when sometimes we get to the point that we in the car and now we can't even find peace because they're talking. And in them talking, they're getting on your nerves. They're grating on your nerves. Oh, here she go. Oh, here he go. And this is all internally. You don't say anything. You cover it on your face. Now something would happen, and if you could say, why does this always happen to us? On and on. We become preoccupied with what we want from someone. We become preoccupied in how that we are going to want them out of the condition so that we don't get bothered. Our goal right now will be to destroy this delusion, this thing that's going on inside of you. Because what happens is when you become preoccupied with what you want, or what you don't want, or what you don't approve of, you fail to see a person's goodness. You fail to see their malice. You fail to see their gentleness. You fail to see their sadness in anything that is present. And so when you are now thinking these thoughts, Jill, it gets to a point that you don't understand that you've got to let that go. And so you have to I have these bricks, and I don't know if you can see them now, but this one is rumination. And it said, and rumination is when you are going through the thoughts in your hand. You got to lay it down and you got to let it go. You got to lay this down and you got to let it go. I'm a man of props, and I just want to do this just one time. Last time, I'll do it right now for this. But sometimes we have something that we're going through. And in us having something that we're going through, Jill, I just saw this before I got up here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like I'm in the room with his mother with those balloons. I know what I'm talking about, but go ahead.
Yeah, you are in the room with my mother. You're in the room with her son. And so sometimes we lay some stuff down, but it's going to make a great example, but we won't let it go. Mm-hmm. We won't let this thing go. We won't let the triggers go. And when we don't let these things go, they mess us up.
And you can't do one without the other.
Okay, there you go.
See, okay, let's say this. Letting it go physically is one thing, but laying it down spiritually.
There you go.
See, spiritually, I don't let it go spiritually. The way you let things go spiritually is that you lay it down.
What do you mean I don't let go things spiritually?
What I mean by that is, letting things go means I have something in my hand, and it's a tangible thing.
Okay.
It's physical. Okay, I'm holding a balloon. I let it go. That's physical.
Okay.
But in your spirit, the way you let it go spiritually is that you lay it down. You surrender.
I got you.
That when you let something go spiritually, you now have to make some adjustments in your belief area.
And surrender. You're right.
You have to surrender. So that's why you can't. If you're gonna go do the complete work, you have to let it go. And you have to lay it down.
While you were saying that, we want to sometimes we don't realize that while we're going, and these are things that I have to impress on my spirit. While we're going through something, it may have caught you by surprise or off guard, but there's an opportunity in the crisis. there's an opportunity for what's going on. And I have to speak to myself so I would not lose hope. And if we don't want, and the question becomes, do I want to pay the price? Do we want to pay the price? Are we willing to accept these feelings? Listen, sometimes we want to hold on to the things that upset us emotionally. We want to hold on to the things that upset us emotionally. But the true thing is, the choice is yours. Black Sheep said, you can get with this or you can get with that. You can get with this and you can get with that. You can get with this and you can get with that. You can get with this, but this is where it's at. He was saying, you got a choice. You can get with that emotion or you can get with this emotion. You can get with this emotion or you can get with that emotion. But the choice is yours. You've got to lay it down. That was a very good point that you made.
And I'll say it this way, connecting to what you said. Here's an example. I could let it go. Deron and I having a conversation. I don't like it. And then this is letting it go. I let it go and we don't talk about it anymore that night.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We go, I look at television, we look at a show, but guess what happens if I don't lay it down? I ruminate.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm by myself, now, I'm now thinking about whatever happened.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't lay it down, guess what's going to happen? That thing that I thought I let go, it's going to manifest again. It's going to show up. It's going to come into your space again.
Right.
It may come up in some kind of word, some statement, but there will be evidence that I did not lay it down.
Right.
That I did not change what I thought. That communication had not been thorough and complete.
It's my responsibility to put this stuff to death. Whatever death choice I'm making, whatever dark choice I'm making, whatever overly emotional choice that I'm making, whatever I'm choosing, it's my responsibility to let this go. And it's your responsibility to let go and lay something down and me to lay something down.
And I want you all, I keep saying this, I want you to get the picture of it. So I pulled up a couple of scriptures. I'm just going to use the John 10, 17 through 18.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Jesus speaking. And in this version, he says, "For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it up again.
Mm-hmm.
No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord.
Right.
I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up. I have choices.
Right.
I have choices.
Right.
And I have authority to do that, to lay it down. I have authority to take it up. But I think what I see in here is that if I don't lay it down, then I am going to show resistance to change. And when it's time for me to change, then it's time for me to go to another level, or go through a door, or to just grow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm going to show resistance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've seen people. You know, I loved him, and he treated me. If I could do the next thing, he did this. Listen, choose to love him. Don't do it out of obligation. Don't do it out of desperation if you can.
Right.
If you are in a desperate situation, then take some time. One of these days, I'll get with some of you all so I can help you go through in a way of spiritual coaching. Mm-hmm. But I can help you go through and how to get past these particular things that we hold on to.
Right. The choice we make will determine our future. You've already said that. Mm-hmm. I thought you said that tonight. This is about your future.
Everything that's happening right now is preparing you so that you will be able to stand up against something tomorrow.
Right. And so right now, I'm telling you, lay down the emotions that you're having right now. Put that on the shelf. Put it on the shelf. It's just like if people don't knock on our door like that, but there were times if we were in an argument or going back and forth and then somebody knocked on the door, we know how to put that to the side. We know how to lay that argument down or whatever discussion we're having and put it to the side. And so I'm saying to you, you must understand that the choice is yours. And we can look at the cost of hanging on to these emotions that upset us, or do we want to pay the price? Are we really trying to accept the feelings? We can look at the benefits of laying them down, or we can realize they determine our future. The question I'm asking you, Factory, what kind of future do you want? What kind of future do we want as a ministry? What kind of future do you want as a family? What kind of future do you want as a person, as who you are? The question is, will we choose to be healed? And watch this. Or will we become one of the walking wounded? Because some of us become the walking wounded. Not the walking dead, but the walking wounded. We are alive, but our souls are apocalyptic because the hurt is just so bad. And you have to decide, am I going to be one of the walking wounded who smile, but I'm really an emotional zombie?
You know, when you said this earlier, I want you all to hear that one of the reasons why sometimes it's hard to let things go and why we have to align ourselves with the will of God and not take our cues from this world, because you wanting justice is godlike. Right. And someone's trying to convince you that you should not care about fairness and justice. They'll never be able to do that permanently. Because God is a just God. Right. So justice is a part of what we search for. This is why we end up judging people, and we end up from one conversation to a court case and a court situation. And so what you have to learn how to do, and I said this last week, we got to know and learn how to be children of God, how to be parented. Let me say that. How to be parented by God. We know how to be parented by other people and our relationships with each other in the physical realm, but you have to know how to be parented by God. You know what that means? You got to have knowledge of your Father. You have to understand that. That's why God would say it this way. Vengeance is mine. Right. You know why he's going to say to you and me and you that vengeance is his? Because he knows that vengeance is necessary for you. Right. It is not for you to let something go. You have to believe that people reap what they sow. Yes. Now, God can have mercy and you may not see them getting that kick swift in the butt like you want. You know, right. You want to see somebody clock them. Take them down. You want to see that, but if you would just believe your Father that He got this, and then it'll lead you to the place where actually you don't want anybody. If you understand the mission of God to restore, you know, I always think about how the penitentiary, it was really meant for rehabilitation. It turned into prison. Right. It turned to jail and just holding people in there forever. Right. But it really was supposed to be about rehabilitation. So nobody actually wanted somebody to go to jail to die in there. Because to send them to prison for the reason why it was supposed to be created was to say, I want you to rehabilitate this person. Now, some people wanted people to go in there and die, but that's another. No, I'm saying that they did, but my point is that the purpose of that institution was that they be rehabilitated. Well, it's the same thing. When you ask God and you want God to show justice, or you want that justice, I want you to don't forget that God is not on trying to punch me to hell like you are. He will use those same circumstances that looks like somebody being crushed so that they could get back up. Right. Let me just say that there was no jail in Africa at one point. The people were able to manage themselves, and they understood harmony. They understood community, and so they didn't have to have a prison system to change something. You know why? Because they had accountability. Right. And if you went into the village and did too much, listen. They beat you down. They beat you. You wish there was a jail. One time my mother told me when she went over to Africa, she thinking she going over there with the dashikis and all this sort of stuff, and then all of a sudden she said she's shopping, and she said, I hear all these people running. I look, and she said when I look, they're chasing this man, and when they catch up with them, she said, what is happening? And the guy said, he has stolen something.
He has stolen something, and the community is going to beat him.
Citizens arrest.
Right. And I'm not advocating that right now, but I'm saying that in that season, the community held each other accountable. And in them holding each accountable, one man, one mind, one body, one spirit, we are going to have to get through this. Now, the question becomes, if you're part of the walking wounded, what thoughts keep me from enjoying my family? What thoughts keep me from enjoying my lover? What thoughts keep me from enjoying myself? And the example is, why, the question I wrote, when I wrote that down, Jill, I asked myself, I would see her and see you crying, maybe on the couch, or see that you were feeling something. And I would know I need to go sit by her. And I would know that. But I was like, I'm not going to sit by you. I'm not going to do that. This is all going on inside my mind. Or I would know that you were bothered. And then I would sit down. But if I sat down, I sit down next to you. But I have to say within, Deron, lift your arm up and put it around her. Because why didn't I want to be vulnerable? Why was I so apprehensive? Why was I too afraid to say how I felt? Today I'll say, can you come sit by me? Can you come over here and sit by me? Can you put your arm around me? Why? Because there's strength in vulnerability. And I couldn't say how I felt. But what kept me? What was the voice? As a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. And that's what I was going through, Jill. And I couldn't understand what's keeping me from being intimate. What's keeping me from doing that? It is because my upbringing, sometimes the environment that we grew up in, caused us to shrink into our fear and our emotions because we were penalized if we share, or we went through some stuff and we remember those things.
Yeah, and I like to say, this may not be 100% true, but it's a little true. See, sometimes you'd come over there and hug me. You didn't want me to start talking and tell you that it was your fault that I had those tears in my eyes. So you were protecting yourself from what may be the lion, right? The lion is now fighting something that didn't exist. It could have existed, but you know. So what do? I'm using that example.
Right now, I'm laying down what you're saying because I don't particularly like what you're saying right now, but it's true.
We tell ourselves certain things, and next thing you know, and this, you have to know how much power you have, how much power the God power that you have, and you tell yourself something, and you will begin to express it. It'll begin to show in your body. You know, if you tell yourself, and I see people, so-and-so don't like me, then you go around them with some kind of energy because you told yourself, you didn't hear anyone say that.
Right.
You know, you told yourself that someone didn't like you because of wherever your thoughts took you.
When you study sin and you study Hebrew, the Hebrew letter, the alphabet, you study Shattah, with Satan, and you study those different things, you begin to learn that sin, when they said Mr., there's a reason why the Greeks translated to Mr. Mark or Hamartia. They put that in there because the person would have a path that they were on, but they would miss the place that they were trying to get to. They would miss the mark. And the reason they put that there, Jill, is because they understood. They lived off the land. They understood. They went through the grass and all these different things, and they understood that the snake, they would be trapped or surrounded by the energy of the snake, which was the deception of the serpent, and it could deceive your mind. And so what to do if the snake climbs into your conscious mind? I put that down because many of us don't understand that the snake's goal is to get into your head. And I'm not talking about telling us like, yeah, I see what you're doing, snake, get thee behind me. No, I'm saying you got to understand sometimes people are emotionally hurt and they're deceptive emotionally and they won't share how they really feel. But the truth of the matter is they get into your head, and the snake goal is to climb up into your conscience. And this is why, Jill, we've been able to do this for so long. This is why even right now we can bring it in the spirit realm. Why? Because we've chose to keep the real regardless. We've chosen that it ain't no slogan keeping it real. It's the real keeping it real. I ate some water.
Okay, well here's mine. So guess what that snake's gonna do? Bite you. What does the snake do? What do the snake use? Poison. What is poison? What is poison for the mind? What is poison for the mind?
Right.
Poison for the mind is, what you do with your thoughts. Poison for the mind is some of that self-talk. People say it's negative self-talk. No, that talk, that's that voice, and you have to know the difference. What happens when we look at a snake when it bites someone? They lose their ability to move. You become immobile. So what is this really about? How do you become immobile? I mean, what is this adversary wants you to do? But by not letting things go. I always think about people who carry a grudge. Why are you carrying someone else's grudge? Why are you carrying it?
Right.
Why are you weighed down?
Because
by what someone else has done.
To carry a grudge is to be angry or to have a victim mentality. Many of us are angry and we have victim mentalities, and it is the victim mentality that makes us feel comforted. We feel like people are trying to get us. People are trying to attack us, as opposed to being able to lay this thing down. And why would we hold a grudge? Because many of us, we hold a grudge because we fear that the person can hurt us. We fear that the person can come and get us. We fear and we shrink from our own authentic self, as you started when we first started doing what we were doing.
So this one came to mind. I wrote down John 15, 12 to 14. And this is what Jesus said. He says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you." So right then and there, he's not telling you that you go and get your idea of love from other folks, whatever people say love is.
Right.
He says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. No one has greater love," as in this, Reading Amplified, "no one has shown stronger affection than to lay down, give up his own life for his friends." But I think some people think that life means I'm going to die physically. No. No. This is how you give up this is how I give up my life. If you look at this word, that meant your breath. Let me see, I wrote it down. Your vital force, right? And so I give up force, my aggression. In certain situations, I lay that down. I lay that down. I lay my force down so that the power of God can prevail. When we talk about 2 Corinthians, I think you said you're going to go there at some point. 2 Corinthians 10, and
you're coming up, but go ahead.
Okay, and before it gets to what you're going to talk about, which is verse 5. If you go to verse 4 and verse 3, it tells you that these are divine weapons. They're divine. They're not just weapons, they're divine weapons. And so I think sometimes by the time we get to the point about the strongholds, we may not have started like at verse 3 or so. And so I'm going to read it. It says, "For although we do live in the world," this is complete Jewish Bible, "we do not wage war in a worldly way, because the weapons we use to wage war are not worldly. On the contrary, they have God's power for demolishing strongholds." See, right there, I've done things in my power.
Right.
I've done things by force. I've tried to stop an argument by my power. But once, I'm going to say it again, once I received God as my Father, then I put myself in position to be raised like a son, like a daughter, so that now I can say, God, I don't have to worry about the outcome. God, you have divine power to do this. All I have to do is keep my light on, represent you. Don't always look like he wants you to look. Sometimes the truth is hard.
Right.
Sometimes the truth feels a certain way. But the bottom line is, my goal is, God, can you lead me? And I'm willing to lay my life down, because these weapons, they have God's power for demolishing strongholds. And then it talks about, what do we demolish? Arguments. Arguments and every arrogance. Notice what you're demolishing.
There you go. I was just writing, listen, if we're gonna be the body of Christ, if we're gonna be Church of the Lord's disciples, and we're truly disciples.
The Lord's disciples.
Lord's disciples, not Deron's disciples, not Deron's village, not any of those things. That's great, but the truth of the matter is, if we're going to be the soul factory where we become students of the word, then we need to go back to the original. This ministry was built on John 12:24. And John 12:24 and says, I'll just read King James first. Verily, verily, I say unto you, unless a grain of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bring forth much fruit. I had to learn to understand this is the season where we hear a lot of death, but this is a season where we must learn to die to our inner desires, die to some of the things in our entitlements. It says in the Amplified, I assure you and most solemnly say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains alone, just one grain. But if it dies, it produces grain and yields a harvest. There's some of us, we need some fruit in our lives. And you're not going to have any fruit in your life until you stop trying to be right. And you begin to say, you know what? This is my season to put down this emotion, put down this being upset, and die. Die. Lord, teach me to die. Teach me to die where I need to be able to say spiritually, I know I'm open to everything and attached to nothing.
That's it. And listen, right before you go into that 2 Corinthians chapter 10, you was going to go to verse 5, right?
Yeah.
I want you to understand, when it says we demolish arguments, an argument and a quarrel is not the same.
It says we destroy sophisticated arguments.
In some versions.
Right, I got you.
Right. So sophisticated arguments, but what arguments are, Deron, is about being right. Mm-hmm. It's about being right. This is not a quarrel. A quarrel is like warring and fighting. For instance, attorneys argue a case. They don't quarrel a case.
Right.
So you know they're arguing about stuff. So arguing is about proving.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you just said about the need to be right.
Right.
Right? And if we can give up the need to be right. So when it tells you that we are sophisticated arguments, what it's saying is we have now come up with sophisticated ways and theories, but our goal is that you're trying to be right. Mm-hmm. That's what the argument, that's the basis of the argument is.
Right.
You're trying to be right, and you have found sophisticated ways to continue to be right.
And prove your point.
And prove your point. And the other part that I think is very important not to forget, and it says, we demolish these arguments and every arrogance that raises itself up against the knowledge of God. Not the knowledge of Jill. Mm-hmm. Not the knowledge of Deron, not the knowledge of Gail Cox, or did I see a Kim Brown on there? Let me see. Not the knowledge of, look, okay, I can't see that person right there. Tawana, Gordon, not the knowledge of Tawana, or Sean, somebody, not the knowledge of you, the knowledge of God. The knowledge of God. So if Deron is talking to me about a personal situation, that's one thing. But then there's a time when we're talking about something, and this is about what he said that comes against the knowledge of God. Okay. Not me.
Okay.
I've already laid down my life.
Right.
So I'm not fighting for a life. I've laid down. Mm-hmm. If I've accepted what baptism is, then I have gone through the process of the watery grave.
Right.
And I've come up new. You know those beautiful songs, how you go down in the water and you come up new. So, what am I saying? This is about things that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And then it says this. And every arrogance that raises itself up against the knowledge of God. We take every thought captive and make it obey the Messiah. I like the way the Amplified says this. It says, and we lead every thought and purpose away captive. We lead it away. Remember you said something about either you're going to lead the thought or the thought's going to lead you. Remember you said something about what it means when when you allow your thoughts to lead you.
You got to get to the point where you shepherd your thoughts to where you need them to be.
There you go.
You don't let your thoughts take you to trouble. You take your thoughts and you take them to peace. Mm-hmm. I have learned how to take my thoughts and shepherd them to the place where they need to be obedient to the Spirit of God. And that means that I got to tell myself in the midst where I'm feeling it, and saying, all right, I'm messing up right now. I need to let that go. And so, listen, we need to refrain from doing this. We have to know, we have to open our eyes and be mindful. And then I've already dealt with that. And let me just go here, right here. Here we go. Transcend, you hear us say it a lot. Transcend, hold on, I just want to stop this right here. It's getting on my nerves. Thank you. Transcend means to pass beyond the limits of emotion and transcend understanding. Transcend means to pass beyond the limits of emotion and to understand, to be greater than the intensity of the power. And so when you transcend, you have to choose. You can't just say, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. You got to be that. You got to have that power. You got to appropriate that power.
That has to show up and be lived out in real time. It's easy to say all those things when you're not in a pandemic. Now you're in a pandemic. You got to live it. This ain't the quoting time.
Don't pandemic. Get out of the pandemic and make sure that you understand that you must transcend, and you can damn it. Literally, when you damn something, you block it up. You shut it down. You stop the flow. You can damn these emotions. You can damn them up to the point where you say, I'm not going to allow this to flood me anymore. But now, to be greater than the power, it means to love more, to be more about love than infatuation. It means to exist independently. Transcendent means to exist above and independent of the experience or the material universe. Sometimes we are caught up in our materials, but God says you can transcend that and embrace love and not allow your materials or whatever it is that's being touched to cause you to lose your mind, because you can always be restored.
Absolutely. And if you want to, when it says set your mind on things that are above, they're not telling you to wait to go to heaven. That talk there. It's telling you to set your mind on those higher things.
Let me just read the scripture, and I'm sure you can finish it. Psalms 144:2. The word, when you transcend, it translates to the word of God. And in Psalms 144:2 says, my stronghold and my deliverer, my shield, in whom I take refuge, my steadfastness, loving kindness, and my fortress, my high tower, my rescuer, my shield in whom I take refuge and subdues people under me. When you transcend, you are going into a higher stronghold. You're going into a higher tower. When you study strongholds in the scriptures, you find out that the goal was to get as high as you could so that you could have a vantage point. If you're going to make it in this season, you're going to have to take yourself higher.
And if you're going to take yourself higher again, you're going to have to do this in the knowledge of God. Not the knowledge of preaching, not the knowledge of church, not the knowledge of bedside Baptist or whatever you've had to do. The knowledge of God. How do you get to know God? That knowledge is not just, it's not cognitive only. It's experience. It's experience. So you're going to have to allow yourself to do some things. I think when you was reading Psalm 144, it just talked about strongholds, and it kept saying, in whom? Right. Who's the whom? In whom? What does it mean? Right. What does it mean to know God? What does it mean to the in whom? What do they understand that we have to understand? But we're trying to know something that we can't see outside of experience.
Come on.
And so, meaning, if you want to experience God at your stronghold, then you're gonna have to find yourself, allow yourself to be in some of these spaces that you can't control. Some of these spaces where there's some uncertainty. Because if you don't have a reason to call on God with your heart, with everything surrendered,
that's it.
You're not gonna. It's just gonna be noise.
That's it. I want to get this done before that battery run dead on this thing.
Okay, no problem.
Listen, we carry unhappy scenes from our past. We chew on the memory of whatever we just did. The man who sees his mother in every woman he meets, he can't see the women that he meets. And so if
say it again, the man who sees his
the mother in every woman he meets, he can't see the woman that he meets, because what he sees
is his mother.
I
got you.
He sees her. If he had a bad experience with his mom.
Same thing with women and father. Yeah.
There you go. And so now, the mother who can't accept her son-in-law, this is a true story. The mother who cannot accept her son-in-law into her heart because of his dreads or tats or the way he dresses, or she can't accept him because he is not what she imagined that her daughter would have. If she can't do it, and there's nothing wrong with him, if she can't realize what's going on, if he's too assertive, if he has his own mind and she can't pull him into the trap of control. I said to you when I told you, I said I want to do this because there's some people that try to pull you into their spell. And if she can't pull the husband, the boyfriend, or whatever it is into her spell, then she gets upset. And when she gets upset, she turns her energy on. And this is what keeps her from thinking peacefully, because that energy has gotten into her head, and it will attack her capacity to genuinely love. In other words, that once that energy gets into your head and you got this thing about people, this thing will attack you continually.
And let me tell you why that's so important.
I'm done. That's it.
Okay. Let me tell you why that's so important. You say, well, how do I genuinely love? You know what love is? Mm-hmm. Love says this: I want the best for you.
Right.
I want the best for you.
There you go.
That's what love says. And so, I can see why is that important for me to say to you? Because Deron, I could be bothered with you, but I don't want to destroy you. Mm-hmm. So there's certain things I'm not going to say. There's certain things I'm not going to do. Because there's nothing in me that wants to destroy you.
Right.
I could be mad at you, and this is what we have to get to. Where you don't try to destroy somebody with your mouth, with the things you say, trying to make them feel guilty, putting a heavy weight on them. When you can just lay it down. You can just lay it down. I had somebody who did something for me, and what they did wasn't just right, right? And to me, it was obvious that these things that this person hung up was not.
Come on.
That they were too short.
Come on.
And I saw that, and I could have said to him, "Why didn't you pay attention to this? You could have done this. You could have. What you should have done, and what? Why didn't you notice?" And just kind of going on to say to place blame and put some thought out there.
Come on.
But guess what I said? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna order the right size. I'm going to order the right size, and once those come in, we just going to switch them out. And that's why I said, you know what? I have no desire to make you feel bad.
And put guilt in his face.
I have no desire to do that.
Right.
The point of God sending his son was to carry our guilt, to help us with our guilt. Why? Because he understood that if you are guilty, you're going to be off course, and you're going to continue to miss the mark.
Right.
Because you're going to spend your life trying to pay for something instead of trying to live for me.
That's it. Here's where I wrap it up. The mother finally came to her senses because he was a good man. He's a good man. And she ended up having to live in his house in her last days because he took her in. But she had rejected him for quite some time. And he said, D, this is strange, because he says, I'm showing her love and everything. He says, I never saw this moment. We don't know where the road goes or where it leads. And sometimes you got to give your love, because that's when, and he said she wanted to stay in the room. He said, you can come on out. We ain't got to go through that.
But see, even if she didn't let it go, guess what God got to show her? Because, and I'm going to say this, because this is what you said about a week ago. Tell me if I'm saying it wrong. And that is this. Sometimes when people are hurting, they don't speak. When they want something, they speak from their hurt.
Come on, we got to close it down. Yep.
They speak from their hurt. And so sometimes it's up to you to really hear the cry of their heart. Their voice may sound boisterous and strong, and some people they don't know how to come in soft.
Right. That's it. Hey, you all, I don't want this thing to cut off on us. And we're having a great time. We pray that you were blessed. And Jill, I would like you just to do a quick closeout, because I don't want this thing to shut down and I can't post it.
Everybody, God bless you. You can relook at this if you didn't catch it all and let it come into your heart, and you sit with it and you get what you're supposed to get out of it.
Right.
Father, bless this word, bless their heart, make it soft enough. Father God, if there's anything that's trying to snatch this word from them, Father God, make them aware and bring it to their conscience so that they can guard that word in their heart, Father God, because you said the heart is the wellspring of life. Amen.
Amen.